Hey guys, welcome to another VATSIM VFR tutorial here on the AviationPro channel. In today's video we're going to take a look at the VFR departures. So in the previous video we took a look at circuits, we did some first flying VFR. Now it's time to explore a little bit more by flying out of an airport. So we're going to take a look at departures. We're going to fly from an uncontrolled airport into uncontrolled airspace, and then we're also going to take a look quickly at an uncontrolled airport where we're going to fly into uncontrolled airspace. So this is really very good to practice, so you just get used at least to departing out of an airport. You do not have to explore other airports yet. You can just stay within that airport and arrive at the same airport in the next video. So you don't have to worry too much about different types of airports, okay? But I want to do controlled and uncontrolled both, so we kind of have an idea how that works, because there may be VFR events on VATSIM where both controlled and uncontrolled airports positions are open. So first of all, we're going to take a look at a controlled airport. We're going to be flying out of Groningen Airport Eelde again, like the VFR circuit, so some of it should be familiar. Let's take a look at the departure procedures at this airport. Now I'm checking the aeronautical information publications for this, so there's a lot of information right there. As you can see, there's some general information that you can read. I'm not gonna read it out all for you, but I'm mainly interested here in the departure procedures, just to kind of get an idea of the local procedures here at the airport. So let's see, there are 7 points that we have to take into account. First of all, pilots must have obtained startup clearance from ATC. Okay, we all know that we have to ask startup. A request for startup shall be made at Eelde delivery. Clearance for startup will either be issued immediately or at a specified time depending on traffic. A request for startup includes aircraft identification and type, position, what kind of flight rules, destination, ATIS information, and that you have to request startup. Okay, so we'll take a look at the phraseology once we're actually inside the sim, and then we're going to put this into practice. Then taxiing on taxiways. Pilots of aircraft intended to taxi on taxiways shall obtain a clearance from Eelde Tower. Okay, so there's no ground frequency at this airport, there's only a tower frequency. So the delivery will transfer us to tower, and then we can request taxi from tower. Unless otherwise instructed or approved, climb after takeoff to 1000 feet. Okay, and then make the shortest turn to join the instructed departure at or before Papa or Victor. Okay, so we're not going to really fly a circuit upon this departure. We'll take a look at the chart in a moment. We're basically just going to fly direct to the first waypoint of the departure route, and then using the shortest turn as possible. Cross Papa or Victor at 1000 feet above mean sea level and maintain 1000 feet above mean sea level until outside the CTR. Report Papa and Victor on ATC request. Report leaving the CTR over the designated reporting point. Okay, so that's very good. We'll take a look at the chart in this case. So as you can see, we have here the visual approach chart of Eelde Airport, which is also a departure chart, so shows you the departure and arrival routes. So this is a controlled airport with specific departure routes. Okay, so we're not flying a circuit and then exiting it on the takeoff leg. We're just going to make the shortest turn as indicated in the aeronautical information publications to get to our route. So let's say this runway 23 is active again today, and we're going to do the uniform departure today. So as you can see right here, if we're departing out of runway 23, at the end of the runway you're going to make a left turn towards the Victor waypoint. As you can see, that waypoint is not colored, so it's just white, it's blank, and that means that waypoints you do not have to report, but air traffic control might ask you to report it anyways. Okay, so let's take a look. If we depart out of runway 23, runway 05, at the end there we're going to make a left turn. As you can see, there's a tiny little restricted area right here. It's basically just a noise abatement area. So as you can see, it's an area to be avoided. Basically, there are just people living there. They don't want to hear the lovely engine sounds, so we have to stay away from that. So we make a left turn and then kind of go to this highway crossing right here. You can see there's a nice structure that we can recognize, which is waypoint Victor, and then we're going to stay to the right of the highway, because on the other side of the highway, as you can see, is the arrival route. It's at 1500 feet, the arrival route, but still you want to make sure that you stay on the appropriate side of the highway in this case. And then climbing to 1000 feet, we continue along the highway to uniform. Now, as you can see on the chart, once we're over at the uniform waypoint, that waypoint is colored, so we have to report it to ATC. And whenever a waypoint on a chart like this is colored, in this case blue, it's not blank, then you have to report it. It's a mandatory reporting point. Okay, so we have to contact tower once we're overhead a uniform. It's kind of, you know, at the start of the city of Assen, and you can also kind of recognize it from the power lines and all the, you know, another highway structure right here. Okay, so that will be fine. It's very important to also know what kind of airspace we're entering next. So as you can see, uniform will leave the CTR, but as you can see, we might be entering other airspace because the Eelde TMA, which kind of where the approach controller is active, you know, starts at 1500 feet till flight level 65, and that's Class E airspace. So technically, we do not have to contact that controller. But let's say just say we're staying at 1000 feet. In that case, we're not flying in that TMA at all. So we're just flying uncontrolled Class G airspace, so we don't have to worry about that. So we'll just stay at 1000 feet around uniform, you know, fly a little bit further and just stay out of the TMA, and we'll just take it easy. And what we're going to do then is request flight information service. Okay, so you also know how that goes. All right, so that's kind of an overview of the departure. Let's step into the aircraft and get going.
Alright, so welcome back in the Cessna 172. We're going to depart out of Groningen Airport again. Let's take a quick look at the flight plan, what the route section kind of looks like. Now, of course, this depends really on what your plans are after you're departing. So, but anyways, let's say we're just, you know, arriving at this airport again. So we fly VFR, departure is going to be Groningen, arrival is going to be Groningen, alternate is Lelystad again. Let's make the departure time a little bit later. Let's say in about 8 minutes. Let's say we're going to be flying for about an hour. Fuel available, your estimated cruise speed, well, let's make it a little bit higher. Let's say we're cruising at 1000 feet. Of course, your altitude is going to change as you're going to fly, especially cross country. So kind of, you know, pick your average altitude right here that you're going to be flying most of the time. So, and then a route you can just put in local VFR. If you have no particular route in mind, then you can just do this. In a cross-country flight, we'll actually add waypoints right here, or maybe visual landmarks or, you know, cities. Okay, but you can just use local VFR as a route. If you have any remarks, you can put them here as well, of course. So that's kind of a, you know, a simple flight plan that you can fill in if you're not planning any particular route. But then at least ATC knows, you know, you're flying local VFR. You're gonna stay within the vicinity of the airport generally, and you're gonna arrive at the same airport later on again. So let's follow the flight plan and we're good to go. So again, the first thing that you would do is maybe a radio check to check your hardware, and you would listen to the ATIS. In this case, the weather is exactly the same as in the circuit video. There are few clouds. The base is high enough in order to do a VFR flight. The visibility is 20 kilometers, so it should be no problem today. We should have pretty good visibility in order to find our departure route. So we've reviewed the departure route. What we can do now is go back to the delivery frequency again, and we're going to ask for startup for a local VFR flight. Eelde delivery, good morning, Papa Hotel Tango Golf Mike is a Cessna 172 in front of the tower, local VFR via uniform departure. Information Foxtrot received, 2 PUB, request startup. So as you can hear, information Foxtrot, let's say the ATIS was Foxtrot, so it's a different letter. As you can hear, we actually mentioned the departure here. You could also put that in the remarks of your flight plan or maybe in a route that you want to fly, in this case the uniform departure. But in this case, we may you know, say it as part of our startup request, because we're flying a local VFR flight, the controller does not really know what departure route we're going to fly. So you can ask that as part of your startup request. So let's see how ATC will respond. Pop Golf Mike, Eelde delivery, good morning. Startup approved, information Foxtrot correct, runway 23, QNH 1017. Startup approved, runway 23, QNH 1017, Papa Golf Mike. Papa Golf Mike, correct, Squawk 7000 for taxi, contact tower 118.7. Squawk 7000, tower 118.7, Papa Golf Mike. Alright, so we'll tune tower 1187 and Squawk 7000 is set. And we're cleared for startup, so we can start up our engine. So make sure that you have your taxi and you know, departure charts at the ready. And we can you know, request taxi the same way like we did last time. So let's take a look. Eelde Tower, good morning. Papa Hotel Tango Golf Mike in front of the tower. Request taxi. Papa Golf Mike, Eelde Tower, good morning. Taxi holding point Sierra 1, runway 23. Taxi holding point Sierra 1, runway 23, Papa Golf Mike. Alright, we've received our taxi clearance again, so let's put the taxi lights on. And just like last time, we'll just taxi to runway 23. So there we go, we are arriving at holding point share 1 again. Again, I'm gonna put my nose into the wind, and then we'll set the parking brake for now. There we go, and we can do our run up. Alright, all engine indications are looking good. I'm gonna put the transponder to active, landing lights on, and I'm gonna get the approach or the departure chart in front of me. So let's do a short recap again. As we depart and pass the threshold of runway 05, we're gonna make the shortest turn as possible to the Victor waypoint. So we're just gonna aim for this highway junction right here, kind of, you know, past the town of Vries. We're gonna stay off the right side of the highway, and then we pass uniform as we kind of fly over at the town of Asse, and we're gonna climb to 1,000 feet. You know, one little note right here, as you can see, right here there's actually model flying area. You know, this is another symbol that you might encounter, as you can see, with activity up to 370 feet above mean sea level. So that's kind of interesting. So anyway, we're going to report ready for departure, and then we'll hopefully safely depart on a uniform departure. And Papa Golf Mike ready for departure. Papa Golf Mike, line up and wait, runway 23. Line up and wait, runway 23, Papa Golf Mike. Okay, we received a clearance to line up, so we're not cleared for takeoff yet. Of course, this could be that maybe a jet in front of us has just taken off or landed and needs to vacate the runway. That can always happen, of course, so we'll just line up and wait. Papa Golf Mike, wind 250 degrees, 4 knots, runway 23, clear for takeoff, uniform departure. Runway 23, clear for takeoff, uniform departure, Papa Golf Mike. So we're cleared for takeoff. As you can hear, the controller just verifies again that we have the uniform departure. So let's take a look. Let's get the departure chart ready, and then we'll take off. Let's take it easy. Again, we're nice and heavy, so the aircraft can fly nice and slowly. We'll release the parking brakes and we'll apply full power. There's 55 knots, we'll slowly rotate. There we go, and we are airborne. So as you can see on the chart, this turn is about a 90-degree turn, so you can kind of estimate what heading you want to fly. This is also a useful feature. But in principle, of course, you want to look outside and see where you kind of want to go. So we're now passing the threshold of runway 05, so let's turn left and see if we can see the highway junction we're aiming for. In the meantime, we're also approaching 1,000 feet, so keep that in mind. This is kind of the town we're aiming for right here, Vries, as you can see on the chart. So there we go. As you can see, it's a bit hard to see at this stage. But here we have the water that you can also see on the chart, so that's another good landmark. And as you can see, kind of in between right here, we have some land, and then right here we have the highway junction. It's not really a large highway, so it may be a bit difficult to recognize first of all. But as you can see, we're nicely flying to it, so that's good. You can see the highway junction right here. And then we're just going to make sure that we stay on the right side of this highway right here. Make sure that the aircraft is nicely trimmed, so you don't have to worry too much about your pitch attitude. And then we're gonna steer right. So we're now over at Victor. Again, that's not a mandatory reporting point, so we're just gonna continue. As you can see, the visibility is really good today, so that's nice. Now, as you can see right here, we're approaching quite a big town, and that's the town of Asse. So that's kind of the area where you know, we expect to enter the uniform waypoint. So as you can see, we are passing the town of Vries on our right hand side as planned, and what we're kind of looking for is the next junction in this little highway. and see if we can see that. And after we've passed that, we kind of over at uniform. And what we're going to do over at uniform, as discussed in the theory video, we're going to report that we're passing it and then leaving the CTR, and then we can request flight information service. So we're doing good. We're still staying at 1,000 feet. The town of Assen is coming up. So let's see. Kind of see the highway junction right here. We're pretty much, you know, this uniform waypoint is really kind of on the boundary of Assen. So let's just call up ATC, report that we're over at, and then let's see what happens next. And Papa Golf Mike over at uniform, leaving your CTR. Bye bye. Papa Golf Mike, roger. Frequency change approved. Bye bye. So frequency change approved. We're now leaving the control zone of the tower controller, and we're now kind of entering uncontrolled airspace, provided we stay at 1,000 feet in this case. Okay, so basically if we just keep kind of flying in this area, it should be no trouble, but of course we want to make sure that we're not bothering any traffic in this area, so always keep that in mind. So let's just scan left to right, see if there's no traffic, especially because an arrival route is pretty close by here as well. So we want to keep that in mind to make sure that we're not bothering the arrivals for the Romeo arrival at this airport. So now what you can do right now is just, if you find yourself some nice space, if you've prepared your flight properly, you can just kind of fly in this uncontrolled area. Just make sure that you do not enter the CTR again. That's always what you have to keep in mind. And what we can do now is request flight information service. So for that we're going to call up the appropriate frequency. This is very dependent on the area you're flying in. The call signs of these stations may be very different, and so I'm just going to show you the example right here. What we're going to call up right here is so-called Dutch Mail. It's kind of a military frequency, and they are able to provide us with flight information service. Now if you're flying on VATSIM, more likely you'll be just monitoring Unicom. If the radar controller is online, they might also provide you with flight information service, but you just have to request that and ask whether they are able to provide that. It never hurts to ask, so keep that in mind. It might also be your standard radar controller that's able to provide you with some flight information service. For now we're just going to pretend we're flying in a VFR event on VATSIM, and we're going to contact the actual flight information service, which usually will be online in that case. So on this chart you can see which frequency that is. It's for en route communication, so as you can see the frequency is 132.35, so let's just tune that. 132.35. Dutch Mail, Papa Hotel Tango Golf Mike. Papa Golf Mike, go ahead. And Papa Golf Mike is a Cessna 172, local VFR around Eelde, present position southeast of Eelde at 1,000 feet, and request flight information service. Papa Golf Mike, roger, flight information service, QNH 1017. QNH 1017, Papa Golf Mike. Okay, so in this case we are under flight information service, and this allows us to request information from this controller basically whenever we need to. So in this case they gave us the QNH. The QNH is still 1017, so that should be no problem. And basically from here on you can just continue your flight in uncontrolled airspace. Maybe make a nice scenic flight, fly around your house or maybe an area that you're familiar with. And then in the next video we're going to arrive at this airport again, and we'll take a look at how that goes.
So there you go, this is a departure out of a controlled airport. Now we're going to take a look at the departure out of an uncontrolled airport, and that's going to be Teuge Airport in the Netherlands. Again, this is an airport with just a radio, so there's air-to-ground communication, but there's no active air traffic control activity. So the phraseology is going to be a little bit different. We're basically just going to report what we're doing, and first of all we're going to ask for some aerdrome information, so we have the latest information as to regards to the QNH and what runway is active, and then from then on we'll just basically free to go, and we have to mention some specific procedures that we're doing. Again, before we go, let's just review the procedures at this airport in the AIP. Again, there's some general information that you can read regarding VFR flying, VFR flight procedures in general, so you're free to pause the video here and read it. But for departures, let's take a look. Let's assume runway 08 is going to be active. As you can see, point number 1, we're going to be climbing to 717 feet above mean sea level, so 700 feet above aerodrome level. As you can see, this circuit has the default Dutch circuit height of 700 feet above aerodrome level. Then we'll leave the circuit via the exit above the visual circuit marker E at an angle of 45 degrees with the takeoff leg in northeasterly direction. This applies also for traffic with a southerly destination, okay? So even if you're going to continue your flight south, you still have to exit in this northeasterly direction. We'll take a look at the chart in a minute. If the altitude of 717 feet is not yet reached over the visual circuit marker, a climbing left-hand turn is allowed, okay? So let's take a look at the chart in that case. Departure procedures are not very extensive, so that's good. So as you can see on this chart, this runway has two circuits. Usually the radio operator at such airport will tell you what kind of circuit is active. So for example, when you're arriving and you're requesting aerodrome information, they're going to say runway 08 right-hand circuit, for example. Now, in this case, it doesn't matter. We just have to follow a specific exit procedure. So as you can see, we depart out of runway 08, and indeed at echo, we're going to turn into a northeasterly direction, okay, at 700 feet, and then we're going to exit the Teuge aerdrome. So as you can see, again, we want to make sure that we know what airspace we're going to be entering. So let's take a look. As we pass over echo, we turn left to the northeasterly direction at 700 feet. As you can see, we are still within the aerodrome traffic zone of Teuge, which runs from ground level to 1500 feet. So let's say we just want to climb out of that, we climb to 2000 feet, which is possible. In that case, as you can see on the chart, we will be entering Class E airspace, which is so-called the New Milligan area, and this is kind of the Flight Information Service region. We do not have to contact them because it's Class E airspace we're gonna be entering in that case, but just for the sake of it, again, we're going to request Flight Information Service, alright? And pretend that we're going to be doing a local VFR flight. Okay, so that's a bit of an overview of the departure route at this uncontrolled airport. Now to see exactly where the lateral boundary of the ATZ is of Teuge, we cannot see that on this chart. We have to look up the actual VFR en route chart of the Netherlands for this. So as you can see, the lateral boundary is right here. So in principle, we could also stay at 1000 feet or 1500 feet and then cross right here in order to leave the ATZ. But in any case, there's not much to it. You'll just be flying out of the airport as long as you stay away from the circuit. And if you're planning to arrive at the airport again, you just have to make sure that you enter via the correct way. Some other things that you have to keep in mind is that you of course have to look out for traffic. I mean, you may be very busy with following the departure route and doing everything properly, but as a VFR pilot, especially in Class C airspace and below, you really have to make sure that you look out for other traffic and avoid it. So keep that in mind. And additionally, just remember that if you're really venturing further out away from the airfield, and if you're going to climb higher, make sure that if you pass the transition altitude, that you actually switch to flight levels. Okay, so that's another little thing to keep in mind.
So welcome to Teuge Airport. Again, this is an uncontrolled airport with a radio frequency in real life, and sometimes when you have a VFR event on VATSIM, the radio frequency will actually be open, so you can treat it the same way as in real life. Now, it being an uncontrolled airport, you're a bit more free to do what you want. Basically, there's no air traffic control. You just want to report what you're doing. First of all, flight plan. You can do, because it's VATSIM, you can send the same flight plan in real life. You probably would not file flight plan for a local VFR flight like this, but for VATSIM, just make sure that you file some sort of VFR flight plan like we did in our previous departure. Also, usually there's no ATIS frequency at such airports, so you have to look up the weather yourself. And in order to determine the active runway, sometimes you can also look at the windsock. Usually somewhere around the runway there's a windsock that you can check in order to see which runway would be active. But of course this airport does have a radio frequency with air-to-ground communication, so we can request some aerodrome information. So as you can see on the chart, the radio frequency would be 121.0. So we're going to tune that. And as you can see, we've already started up the engine because we simply don't have to request for startup. Squawk code, you can just put in the default squawk code for VFR, 7000 here in Netherlands, and that's good to go. So we're going to contact the radio operator basically and tell what we want to do and request some aerodrome information. Now the following phraseology is going to be a little bit different from the departure at a controlled airport, in this case at Eelde. So keep that in mind, and also keep in mind the steps that I'm going to take here might also be different in your country. What we're going to do is request aerodrome information. We do not have to request taxi or anything, or report it with taxiing. We can just taxi on our own convenience, and then of course look out for traffic so that we don't get in anybody's way. And then the only thing we're really going to report is when we're lining up on the runway, and then we're going to take off. And then we also report that we're leaving the circuit and leaving the frequency as we climb to 2,000 feet in the eastern direction in this case. So let's do a quick recap of the departure. We're just going to taxi to runway 08, and then we're going to take off and exit at circuit marker Echo in the northeastern direction at 700 feet, as you can see. Well, probably the circuit marker will not be very well visible, so we can also use this forest right here in order to determine our position. And basically we're gonna head for the river IJssel further on. After we've left the circuit, we're gonna continue to climb to 2,000 feet, and then as we head further east towards kind of the Deventer area, we have left the ATZ, and then like our controlled departure, we'll be requesting flight information services, because then in that case we're going to be flying in Class E airspace. If you would stay at 1,000 feet, for example, we would fly below Class E airspace, and then we would still be in Class G airspace, right? So in that case you could also request flight information service. So that's a quick recap. Let's request aerodrome information. Teuge radio, Papa Hotel Tango Golf Mike. Papa Hotel Tango Golf Mike. Papa Hotel Tango Golf Mike is a Cessna 172 local VFR with 2 POB. Request aerodrome information. Papa Golf Mike, roger, runway 08, a right-hand circuit, QNH 1020. Runway 08, right hand circuit, QNH 1020, Papa Golf Mike. Okay, so the radio operator gave us a QNH 1020, which has already been set, and runway 08 is indeed active, and we know that it's a right hand circuit. So if we were to be flying circuits at this airport today, then we would have to use the right hand circuit in the circuit area indicated in the chart. Okay, so but in this case we're just going to exit the circuit by following the exit procedure, and now we can just taxi on with our, using our own convenience. Just gonna turn on the taxi lights, and we'll taxi to the holding point, do a quick run up of the engine, and then we'll get ready for lineup. I've released the parking brake. Again, keep a good eye out for any traffic. Again, it's not going to be controlled. You're not going to get any traffic advisories on the ground or anything. Usually the radio operator doesn't even see you. Maybe you might be sitting in some sort of office and has no visual contact with you. So keep that in mind. So as you can see, it's a good day for flying still. We've got a few clouds, and we should be able to stay well clear of the clouds. So that's nice. And we approach runway 08. At this point, already keep a listen out on the radio frequency for any traffic that's reporting final. Because if there's traffic reporting final, you know that you cannot line up yet, so it doesn't make sense to report lining up, right? So keep that in mind. For now, we'll continue to the holding point of runway 08. Set up parking brake and do our engine run up. Okay, engine is looking good. Nobody is reporting final, so we are going to report that we're lining up, and that already implies in this case that we're also going to take off. All right, so line up means takeoff here, at least in the Netherlands. So there we go. And Papa Golf Mike lining up runway 08. Papa Golf Mike, roger. As you can hear, all the radio operators will say is roger. Not gonna give you any wind information or anything, so keep that in mind. No takeoff clearance really required. It's all at own discretion, and of course in conjunction with all the traffic that's flying in the circuit as well. Okay, so we'll line up 08 and we'll get the chart at the ready, and then we'll take off. And then once we have exited the circuit, we'll contact the radio operator again, saying that we've left the circuit. Okay. Alright, there we go. Again, we're going to climb to 700 feet, so keep that in mind. The circuit is not 1000 feet like at Eelde, and the exit itself is also at 700 feet, so we really have to keep that in mind. And we're going to keep a good lookout at where we are and try to navigate our way through. So it's a bit hard to see, but this is the forest that I've talked about that we're going to use as a visual reference. And so we're now going to turn left towards the exit. And as discussed with the departure procedures, we are actually allowed to do a climbing turn as well. So we are almost at 700 feet. And we'll now continue. Head for the IJssel, the river up ahead. And then since we kind of leave the circuit right now, we are going to report that we've exited the circuit and are leaving the frequency. And Papa Golf Mike leaving the circuit and your frequency, bye bye. Papa Golf Mike, roger, bye bye. Okay, so again we've left the circuit, we're now in Class G airspace shortly as we cross here the river, and we'll simply climb to 2000 feet right now as planned. Of course, if you want to, you can also do a continuous climb because you leave the circuit pretty quickly, but that's okay. And as you can see on the right here is the town of Deventer, so for now I'm just going to stay in this area. But anyway, since we've now left the ATC pretty much and are shortly entering Class E airspace of New Milligan, we are going to request flight information service again. Okay, so we've arrived at 2000 feet, let's call up Dutch Mail. Dutch Mail, Papa Hotel Tango Golf Mike. Papa Golf Mike, Dutch Mail, hello. Papa Golf Mike is a Cessna 172, local VFR near Teuge, current position east of Deventer at 2000 feet, request flight information service. Papa Golf Mike, roger, flight information service, QNH 1020. QNH 1020, Papa Golf Mike. So there we go, we're now with flight information service again. As you can see, not very difficult, very easy, and we're now nicely flying in Class E airspace. Of course, we still want to look up and make sure we stay clear of traffic, and other than that we can just enjoy the beautiful views right here.
There you go, that's the second departure done out of an uncontrolled airport this time. As you can see, it's really important to look up the local procedures and really be aware of where the specific areas are and what kind of airspace you're going to be entering once you leave, in this case the aerdrome traffic zone, or if you depart out of a controlled airport, what kind of airspace you're entering after you leave the CTR. So always keep this in mind. Now again, the Netherlands is a quite complicated country. There's just a lot of different airspaces right here, so it's a little bit more difficult. If you're flying in some sort of remote airfield in the US, this is really not going to be a problem that quickly, but always make sure that you know where you're going to be flying. So again, just plan ahead. So thanks for watching this VFR tutorial here on the Aviation Pro channel. Make sure you also check out the previous video regarding VFR circuits, and in the next video we're going to take a look at arrivals. So in this case we're going to be arriving into a CTR and into an aerdrome traffic zone like at Teuge Airport. So we're going to feature both airports again. So make sure you check out those videos and stay tuned. And if you like to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/aviationpro. That would be much appreciated. So thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.